This week, Siskel and Ebert review Julia Roberts and Denzel Washington exposing a shadowy conspiracy in the Pelican Brief. Denzel Washington also co-stars with Tom Hanks in the courtroom drama Philadelphia. And Charles Grodin's puppy problems are multiplied in Beethoven's Second.
Law student Julia Roberts joins Washington newspaper reporter Denzel Washington in a race to unmask the killers of 2 Supreme Court justices in the Pelican Brief. One of 5 big new holiday movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, including pictures starring Tom Hanks, Johnny Depp, Robert Duvall, and a St. Bernard. Season screenings, everyone. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is The Pelican Brief, based on the best-selling thriller by John Grisham, and it marks the return of superstar Julia Roberts to the screen after a 2-year absence. She plays a New Orleans law student whose research turns up a conspiracy behind the murders of 2 Supreme Court justices, and suddenly she finds herself a murder target too.
Did you get into my apartment okay? Your computer's gone. So are your floppy disks. So are your red expandable files.
She turns for help to the FBI, and then, fearing she can trust almost no one, calls an investigative reporter on a Washington newspaper played by Denzel Washington.
If this thing reaches as deep and goes as high as we think it does, these men will do anything not to be exposed. Where can you hide?
The movie was directed by Alan J. Pakula, who also made All the President's Men, and here he recycles the relationship between a reporter who thinks he's onto a great story and an editor who remains a skeptic. John Lithgow plays the boss.
I thought of dropping you into the ranks of the unemployed. I know damn well you'd slap me with a discrimination
She's
suit.
here.
Bird girl?
Is here.
You could have told me on the phone.
That wouldn't have been wise.
And by the way, refusing to tell me where you could be reached did not exactly leave a good impression.
Meanwhile, the scandal reaches inside the Oval Office, where the president, played by Robert Culp as a smiling simpleton, is handed some very bad news by his chief of staff, the sinister Tony Goldwyn.
I think you should ask Kaminsky to have CIA investigate. The second we confirm that this thing is garbage, you can ask Boyles to back off.
It's domestic. Well, the CIA can't go nosing around. It's illegal.
Technically.
The Pelican Brief is well acted and skillfully directed, and it does a good job of creating suspense through its claustrophobic plot structure. The Julia Roberts character feels trapped and under observation everywhere she goes, and under pressure, she and Denzel Washington's newspaper man manage to stay one jump ahead of assassination. But the explanation for the Pelican Brief itself, the theory that she has come up with, is both too complicated and not very interesting, involving still another corrupt oil billionaire and still another White House conspiracy. This stuff has been used countless times before, and John Grisham is simply shuffling an old deck. What I liked about the movie, enough to recommend it, was the chemistry between Roberts and Washington, and the way Pakula is able to create suspense out of thin air and a little ominous music.
I didn't care for the picture, Roger, in addition to the payoff, which you say really isn't very exciting in terms of the suspense or the mystery of the story, and it surely isn't. I didn't think that Julia Roberts was very convincing. Denzel Washington, well, he's about as charismatic as you get, but boy, I thought she was really flat. Sort of the idea that this law student is going to, figure this thing out is just preposterous to begin with, I think. And then I just didn't feel the chemistry between them. And when you mentioned...
Oh, I feel there really is chemistry, real chemistry between them.
When you mention All the President's Men, and I would have thought of that even if Pakula hadn't directed it, boy, it's just night and day.
It's not
anywhere near.
All the President's Men, and I'll tell you this, I feel that John Grisham, if there is an overrated writer in America today, it is Grisham, because he sells millions of copies, and these plots are not interesting.
No, it's not
and
at
really,
all.
most of the characters' dialogue is just at the service of the plot, but what happens here with Pakula is a good enough director that he's able to take this material and make it work while the movie is playing.
I don't think it, I'll tell you, it reminded me of All the President's Men light. It's just a light version. The president is a simpleton, is absolutely right. It's never really threatening. It's all made up all the way through. Okay, next film, and it's Beethoven's Second. And I really enjoyed the first film in the series, but the sequel is nothing special, save for some cute St. Bernard puppies, and sad to say, a wildly inappropriate scene. More about that in a second. The story is ripped off right from 101 Dalmatians, beginning with this cute scene where the manly hero of the first film, known as Beethoven, spots a girl St. Bernard in the park. So far, so sweet.
You know this guy?
The canine couple produces 4 puppies that the Newton family kids hide in their basement away from Dad Charles Grodin, who didn't want the original St. Bernard Beethoven in the first place.
You know, just a few days to get away. Are those sounds coming from outside or in the basement?
Outside.
The bad guy is a woman, obviously based on Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians.
Look, what do you want to take Missy for, huh? You hate dogs. You hate all living things.
Look, this is not about animals. It's about alimony. And since I got the court order, the dog stays with me in the apartment until we negotiate our little divorce.
Yes, divorce is an issue in the film, but a subject that I didn't expect to come up was potential sexual assault. That's right. There's a scene in this picture where a teenage boy locks the Newton family's teenage daughter in a bedroom and says, "This is going to be great. Try explaining to your kid what the this is in that sentence." Beethoven saves the day, but be prepared for dealing with it with your little ones. And what's the point of that scene? Are they that desperate in Hollywood? Is that supposed to help market the films to teens? You know, hey, kids, there's something in it for you, too. You teenagers, you're going to...
Date rape.
Yeah, date rape. Hey, there's a good subject for you. Beethoven's Second is a little kid's movie, and that scene has no place in an otherwise innocuous film. Thumbs down for me, and I'm also shaking my head.
Yeah, thumbs down for me, too. And in addition to the obviously inappropriate scene that you talked about, another thing that bothered me was that the level of comedy isn't as high. I thought the last movie, which was no masterpiece,
but it was
I gave
cute.
that thumbs down, too, but it was a lot better than this one.
I liked it.
It was about the family and about Charles Grodin, who was a superb comic actor who doesn't want this dog in the house. Now we have a situation where basically he's gotten around to the point where he likes the dog and even sort of likes the puppies, and then you have these 2 heavies that come in, and they're dog nappers, and the humor is gone.
Bonnie Hunt also was very appealing. You had a real couple there, a real specific family, and they didn't write those scenes.
When we come back, Tom Hanks is dying of AIDS, and Denzel Washington plays his attorney in Philadelphia.
From the day they hired me to the day I was fired, I served my clients consistently, thoroughly, with absolute excellence. If they hadn't fired me, that's what I'd be doing today.
You know your NyQuil works. What'd you do? You tried the latest thing, so you coughed all night.
Got no rest. Ended up a zombie. And your proposal to the world's most demanding boss?
Postponed until tomorrow, which means you can take NyQuil tonight. You're stupid, Dave, but lucky.
Vicks NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can rest medicine. Also new NyQuil hot therapy.
Walter, thank you. What is this? Thank you. Thank you.
You bet, Andy. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. I'm overwhelmed.
What's that in your forehead, pal?
Well, where?
That right there in your forehead.
A senior partner in his law firm notices a telltale mark on the forehead of a lawyer played by Tom Hanks there in that scene from Jonathan Demme's new film, Philadelphia. The senior man guesses correctly that it's Kaposi sarcoma, a skin disease associated with AIDS, and suddenly Hanks is fired from the firm where he thought he was highly regarded.
Some people think you have an attitude problem, Beckett.
Really? Who thinks that?
I do.
This is, of course, blatant discrimination, and when his old law partners start pretending he was incompetent, Hanks decides to sue. Most of the law firms in Philadelphia won't take his case. They don't want to make powerful enemies. But Hanks finally finds a lawyer who will represent him. He's played by Denzel Washington as the kind of flashy personal injury expert who advertises on television.
I misplaced an important complaint. That's their story. Want to hear mine?
How many lawyers you go to before you call me?
9.
It's a cliche in AIDS stories that the patient's family is intolerant and bigoted, but it's a cliche this movie avoids, as in this scene where the dying man and his lover, played by Antonio Banderas, are at home with Hanks's family. Joan Woodward plays the mother, and her speech to her son is one of the movie's quietest but most effective moments.
I didn't raise my kids to sit in the back of the bus. You get in there and you fight for your rights, okay?
Mary Steenburgen plays the defense attorney for the law firm, which claims Hanks couldn't have been fired for having AIDS because he kept it a secret. Hanks makes his own most effective witness.
What I love the most about the law? Yes. Is that every now and again, not often, but occasionally, you get to be a part of justice being done.
Philadelphia is being billed as Hollywood's first movie about AIDS with a big budget and big stars. Right. Tom Hanks is very good in this movie, embodying all the humanity of the character without resorting to tear-jerking tricks, and I think he's sure to get an Oscar nomination. But the screenplay itself, I think, could have been a little better. Somehow, once the story gets into the courtroom, the truth and spontaneity of the earlier scenes gets absorbed into the old and familiar patterns of courtroom drama. Still, it's a powerful film.
I had the exact same reaction as you, that Hanks's character is compelling, but the courtroom story is really sort of hack. And it's a shame that he's put through it. I do recommend the film for one thing that Jonathan Demme does. I think if there's a visual strategy and image to this film, it's Demme saying, let's look at AIDS in close-up. Here are the sores. Look at me. Because I think that what AIDS victims must feel, among many other things, obviously they're going to die, is that people won't look at them. They won't even acknowledge them. And so his camera is used to pan down the face, pan down the body. Here it is. Look at it. Look at it. I'm a human being, and that's the strength of the film.
That whole part of the film, and I'm serious when I said that Joan Woodward, who's on the screen very briefly, has two moments of incredible power. The part involving his family, the part involving his lover, the part involving the way he's treated by people is so much more important than just the structure of the courtroom. Who's going to win the case?
Yes.
We don't really care, or we know.
We know, and the arguments are with the exception of a couple of big speeches, seemingly impromptu speeches by Denzel Washington. Other than that,
there's one nice touch, and that's when the Mary Steenburgen character whispers to her colleague, "I hate this case."
Yeah. Coming up next, an oddball story with an oddball title. Johnny Depp stars in the family drama What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Dora. It's a town where nothing much ever happens. This is where I live with my family. Doctor said we'd be lucky if Arnie lived to be 10.
Johnny Depp is Gilbert Grape, the head of the Grape household. His father is dead. A family trying to get by while coping with some of the oddest problems you've seen in a movie in a long time. And let me confess right away that I love What's Eating Gilbert Grape. It's one of the year's best films, I think. Gilbert is challenged first and foremost by his mentally handicapped brother, Arnie, played beautifully by Leonardo DiCaprio.
6 days in my part, and I'm coming team. I'm 18, and you're not invited.
Arnie, don't be rude.
Oh, it's okay.
That woman in the pickup truck is played by the inventive young actress Juliette Lewis. She's just passing through town and maybe through Gilbert's life.
That's the house. It's really amazing. I mean, how small it looks from here, considering the girth of what's inside of it.
He's referring mockingly to his obese mom, played memorably by Darlene Cates. When have you ever seen a fat person in the movies treated with such complexity?
I never meant to be like this. I never wanted to be a joke.
You get a sense of the oddity of this film? What's Eating Gilbert Grape is better than any contemporary rural slice-of-life picture I can think of. It was directed by the fine Swedish director Lasse Hallström, known for his offbeat comedies My Life as a Dog and Once Around with Richard Dreyfuss. This story is based on the novel by Peter Hedges, who also wrote the screenplay, and he and Hallström create memorable characters, spin them in fresh ways so that you know these people very well and care about them very much when the film is over. I strongly recommend What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
You know, one of the things I like best about the picture is the very true way in which they show the town people relating to this family, which is obviously an odd family that lives outside of town. They have one son who's always climbing the water tower,
Right.
and then a mother who never leaves the house, probably can't get through the door.
Yeah.
And then Gilbert Grape trying to hold everything together and not sure if he can, you know, trust himself to have a love relationship with Juliette Lewis because he has all these responsibilities at home.
Is there enough left in him to love someone who obviously loves him, and he's got his love played out in different arenas?
You know,
it's a very
these
special
two
picture.
actors, Johnny Depp, who was so good in Benny and June earlier this year, Juliette Lewis, who was so good in California earlier this year, are now two more good performances, indicating that they're really people to keep your eye on.
Yep.
When we come back, Robert Duvall and Richard Harris are two old men living one day at a time in wrestling Ernest Hemingway.
I'm 80 years old. If you don't stop President, I'll die before we get there.
Our next movie is named Wrestling Ernest Hemingway, and it's a sweet, warm-hearted movie about a friendship between two old men who would seem to be complete opposites. One is a retired sea captain, played by Richard Harris, and the other is a retired barber from Cuba, played here by Robert Duvall, although you have to look closely to recognize him. Their daily ritual includes a visit to a coffee shop where Duvall harbors a not-so-secret crush on the waitress, played by Sandra Bullock.
You know, you're breaking my heart sitting here in Bernice's section when there's a table opened up in mine.
Yes.
If the Duvall character is shy and courtly around women, the Harris character is always on the make. One of his targets is a woman he often runs into at the movies, played by Piper Laurie. And his other target is the manager of his residential hotel, played by Shirley MacLaine.
Two old Irish dogs should not be barking at each other.
That's nice, Joyce, only I ain't Irish.
Cooney. What the hell kind of a name is Cooney if it ain't Irish?
That husband I had, he was Irish. He left. I got stuck with the name.
Harris has a fine bravura in the film, and Duvall provides a counterpoint with his quiet, delicate, good manners, as in this scene where he goes to say goodbye to the waitress.
Why don't you come inside?
Oh, I have to go back.
Well, you just got here.
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Well, Frankie let me use his bike.
You came all this way on that?
Yes. It wasn't hard. I'm in good shape.
Ernest Hemingway was a writer known for romanticizing macho behavior while at the same time battling the demons of loneliness, insecurity, and approaching old age. And in a low-key way, both of these men are wrestling with some of the same problems. They are old, they have been sidelined, they are forgotten by friends and family, but they have a pride and a will to live life to its fullest, and when they form their unlikely friendship, they're able to see that more clearly. Wrestling Ernest Hemingway is a sentimental movie, yes, but it's unashamedly sentimental and very touching.
I like the individual performances very much, and Duvall, you know, within the acting community, they all respect him tremendously, and I think if people see this performance, they'll see that. At the same time, I don't know, I didn't make the connections maybe that you did, but I didn't feel that this story took them in other than a very predictable ways that suddenly these seeming opposites are going to find each other because they're both lonely. And I guess what I would have liked to have seen, I don't know what I want to see them do in this picture, but it seemed like a march right to a very specific ending.
They've really gotten to the point where they're not going to do anything. If you had them doing something like maybe they wanted to sail their boat to Cuba again or something like that, it would have been really cliche. The fact is,
it's cliched
these are people who live their lives in rented rooms and on park benches and in diners, and they find a friendship that helps them enrich their lonely lives a little bit, and that's all it's about.
That's a little cliched at the end. That's my point, Roger. I wish I would, maybe if they sort of went their separate ways.
So you're not recommending it?
I'm recommending the performances, not the film.
Okay, well, you're going to have to see the film, though, to
that's true.
Enjoy those performances. Coming up next, our video pick of the week, another film starring Denzel Washington, who seems to be everywhere at the movies these days.
The Century Plaza, offering the finest in luxury service in Southern California style, adjacent to Beverly Hills on L.A.'s fashionable west side, the Century Plaza Hotel and Tower.
And now for our home video pick of the week, starring Denzel Washington, the star of the Pelican Brief and Philadelphia, who has become one of our most charismatic leading men. But this comes as no surprise to us because Roger and I targeted him for big stardom the first time we saw him in a leading role in the Jamaican detective story, The Mighty Quinn. He plays a policeman in search of an alleged criminal, his boyhood pal, played by Robert Townsend.
What are you smiling about?
The uniform man. You look great. Where you been? Parade.
Wedding.
The
Mighty Quinn was made in 1989. If you've never seen it, it's a marvelous film, upbeat and funky and romantic, and it launched the career of Denzel Washington. The Mighty Quinn, our video pick of the week. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. A split vote on the thriller The Pelican Brief with Julia Roberts and Denzel Washington. Roger thought the performances carried the convoluted story. I wasn't impressed and didn't care, frankly, if anyone was caught. 2 thumbs down for Beethoven Second, a lackluster sequel featuring a familiar story, 1 inappropriate scene, not much of Charles Grodin, just a lot of cute St. Bernard puppies. 2 thumbs up for Jonathan Demme's AIDS drama Philadelphia, with a great performance by Tom Hanks, undercut only by a standard courtroom melodrama. The film opens Wednesday in New York, LA, and Toronto, then in the rest of the country in January. 2 thumbs up, way up, for What's Eating Gilbert Grape by world-class Swedish director Lasse Hallström. Johnny Depp stars in a family drama packed with one unforgettable character after another. And finally, a split vote on Wrestling Ernest Hemingway. Roger enjoyed it more than I did. I felt let down by a script that didn't do enough to support the fine performances by Richard Harris and Robert Duvall. So What's Eating Gilbert Grape is the picture I guess we like the most this week.
That's it for this week. Next week we'll be back with more big holiday movies, including Heaven and Earth, starring Hep T. Lee as a Vietnamese woman who somehow survives the war and marries an American soldier, played by Tommy Lee Jones. And also In the Name of the Father, with Daniel Day-Lewis as a man framed for murder, and Emma Thompson as the attorney who believes he's innocent. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Ladies, for close, smooth shaves in or out of the shower, the Lady Remington Wet Dry. Rechargeable or battery operated, Lady Remington Wet Dry. It's American